Yeah, welcome. Great to be with everyone again. Another football season, which is a special time of year. Team meeting today at 3:30 kind of kicks things off, even though the season is year round. The official start to 2026 is at 3:30. Love this team. They're competitive. They have great culture, excellent leadership, and I love being around them every day. They've worked really, really hard from the time that I've arrived, but also from the time they've arrived, and thrilled to be in the Pac-12. So an amazing opportunity for this institution, this team, and myself and my staff as a coaching staff. And yeah, couldn't be more excited about the upcoming year. Glad to take questions.
Jason Walker with Cache Valley Daily. A trend that I've noticed in your coaching career is year one, you've taken over some struggling programs, BYU, Virginia. Year one didn't necessarily get a lot of wins. I think one year went 2-10, another you barely made it into a bowl game. But the year after that, both at Virginia and at BYU, you had some pretty good seasons, got some pretty nice bowl games. Just is that something you're hoping to, build and continue with Utah State? And kind of what went into being able to get that year two success where you maybe spent a year building up toward it?
I think it really is what you said, a year to build up to it. There's a process of discovery at each institution, and there's unique challenges at each institution. Really proud of our team last year and qualifying for postseason again, which is typical of our programs and foundational really to the trajectory of a program that I'm coaching. Usually, to your point, results compound from one year to the next. Usually there's a pretty significant jump at BYU postseason the first year, much like this year or last year at Utah State. Those two seasons were very similar, right to the end to be postseason eligible. Virginia, it took us our second year to be postseason eligible. And then usually from there, it took off pretty strongly and remained consistent. The landscape is different now with the teams and the rosters changing that much. But the ideals, the principles, the methodology, the processes, all those things still take root. And when you preserve the core of returning players and add new ones to it, that usually ignites that process and accelerates it. And that's traditionally what's happened in our programs. And there's no indication that makes me think otherwise now. So I'm encouraged from what I see. And I love the idea of unbroken growth, where wherever the first pin is kind of placed on the graph, right, the next pin is placed higher. And it just kind of keeps going and then continues. And so that's the goal.
Hey, Coach, Eric Franson with 106.9 The Fan. You're talking about evolution and improvement. Last year, your defense kind of struggled to stop the run. But as the season progressed, especially later in the season, that became actually a strength of your team. What's that next evolution for your defense specifically?
Yeah, continued improvement. As we saw a year ago, the beginning, I would say half of the season, not nearly as strong. The last 6 games, much more consistent, much stronger, really run and pass and statistically overall, including the most important, which is points allowed. And so I'd love to see our defense basically start right where they left off and then continue from there with the same kind of improvement they made. And that's really required to win championships and to win a Pac-12 championship. Man, the points that go on the board and the points you allow really determine that. And so we were trending in the right direction toward the end of last year, to your point. That just has to be the beginning on a continued trajectory on the same path.
Carson Frost with the Herald Journal. Coach, not only did you guys get some wins and get this program in the right direction last year, but a couple of those losses, it really seemed like one play or one score really decided things. Could have really been the difference between where you guys ended up and potentially competing for a Mountain West championship. What were some of those little things you noticed in those close losses that you've been trying to tighten up this year?
Yeah, the league, the Mountain West a year ago, a lot of parity. I see the Pac-12 very similar. Parity, I think, is maybe the signature marker of the league right now. And when I think about a year ago, making critical kicks during the UNLV game, we had a number of chances to win that game, and that was the team competing for the conference championship. And I chose to go for it on a 4th and 2 and 4th and 6 inches here at home against Boise. Didn't get either one. Those 5 plays made a difference. And 8 wins sounds a lot better than 6. And that's where the margins are. And so critical plays at the critical moments in tightly contested games. I expect this season to be similar. And so replicating, practicing, putting our team in as many of those situations as possible, 2-minute drives, 4-minute drives, winning kicks, overtime games, right? Our practice emphasis is going to have a lot to do with finishing games that are close and are contested, which I think is how the Pac-12 is going to go.
Maybe on kind of a similar note as far as getting wins, because you look at the last 4 years, the program hasn't won more than 6 games. You go to the preseason polls, they're picking Utah State to be 5th or 6th. Like,
which are so accurate, huh?
yeah, I know that they're always like, what kind of has to change? Because we've seen, Utah State break free from preseason expectations. What things need to happen, maybe on a macro or even a micro level, for Utah State to not only exceed preseason expectations, but exceed its own recent, what it's done in the last 4 years?
Yeah, I think consistency. I think consistency in leadership will help. I think consistency in roster will help. I think consistency in resources will help. And I think consistency of approach will help. And with the right leader, with the right processes, the right resources, over time, those things compound, and you now start building a program that's known for, right, not just qualifying for bowl games, but battling for conference championships year in and year out. And so I think stability has something to do with that. Would be my assessment.
Jenna Fink from KU TV. Tough non-conference schedule for you. You have Utah and Washington back to back. How do you approach that challenge that early in the season?
Yeah, I love the word challenge, but I think that the word I like even better is opportunity. And man, throughout the course of my coaching career, I've coached against a lot of really good teams and maybe a lot of brands that are supposed to be powerful and strong. And really, when the game starts, I found that, the team that's most prepared and the team that really executes at the highest level and believes at the highest level, it's amazing what can happen. And so fun to be able to play in Salt Lake City and play in Seattle. But really those games, to me, great opportunities for this program to perform really, really well. And I wouldn't count us out versus anyone we're playing.
Hi, Coach. Andrea Urban with Fox 13. Pac-12 era, just what excites you about almost the chance that this Utah State program can elevate to with this new era that is the Pac-12?
Yeah, I love the word elevation because this is a step forward, and the spots to be included in the Pac-12 are coveted. The teams that were left behind didn't feel great about being left behind, right? The Pac-12 was viewed as a step up. It was viewed as an opportunity to grow programs. It was viewed as, in the changing landscape, a step forward. And yeah, we're part of that. So I think it's fantastic for Utah State. I think it's amazing for Cache Valley. Love the opportunity for our players, but also in the current landscape necessary if we want to be relevant, which we do. This is one of the very first things we need to do.
Hopefully you can hear me back here.
I got you.
Travis Green, ABC4. I know it's early and you might not know this, but what do you think this team's identity is going to be?
It is early, and all I can know, or all I can say based on what I've seen in off season, which is not the season, and I would say through spring practice as well, they're willing. This team is willing. This team is tough. This team is resilient. I would say this team is very close. And so I would expect a complementary style of football where each side of the ball in each phase is playing a similar way. And I think they're tough, and I think they're resilient. And so now tweaking the schemes and the strategies and the technical and tactical delivery of this team and to differentiate that way, that's going to be really important. Seeing our quarterback not only through a spring, but through a fall camp, that's going to drive the identity more than anything. And the quarterback is disproportionately more value than any other player. How we play has to reflect what his strengths are, and those are still being discovered. So that's primary in the process in answering your question.
Carson Hilton with the Deseret News. I'm not sure if Achilles heel is the right word, but last year it seems like the offensive line really was tough for you guys. I mean, Bryson Barnes was sacked, I think, 4th most in the country. Coming into this year with the guys that you retained and the new guys, especially on the O-line, do you feel like there's a jump significant enough to be competent to keep McKay safe?
Yeah, to be determined. So we're trending the right way. So from what I saw in the spring, from the players that we've added, and from all the workouts, I think we're trending in the right direction. Certainly has to be addressed. It was, difficult season last year with the amount of times Bryson was hit. We scored a lot of points, but we didn't really control games, meaning being able to run it when we wanted to or protect when we needed to at times. Returning players, more experience and more seasoned, that will certainly help. Some new additions will certainly help, and improved depth will certainly help. Added additional resources, not only to Coach Ecatelli, our O-line coach, but added DJ Tialavea as well. So we have 2 sets of eyes. And so the resources, the personnel, and the approach and the time should all lead to increased performance. That's what I've seen so far. And that's what I'm confident will happen when the season starts.
Brian Priest, KSLSports.com. Coach, you were talking earlier about just the importance of a team believing in itself, individuals believing in themselves. As you go through the summer workouts and you've wrapped up that portion of practices and such, what is the coaching staff's role in helping develop that belief and establish it, and then let the locker room take over?
Yeah, in my experience, the best teams have been player-led. There's an amazing book called The Captain's Class, and talks about the power of team captains actually is more influential than that of a coach. Really fascinating study. I love empowering young people. We have excellent leadership. Our team has selected a leadership council already, and the quality of the workouts those players were leading in July was exceptional. And so really, when the program is the players' program and they're aligned in principle, and those teams are hard to beat, and that's the direction we're headed. So I'm really encouraged by what I've seen from our team leadership.
You touched on it a little bit, but I wanted to ask again about the schedule. I mean, I know you guys look like you could be a better team this year than last year, but also you'll have to play better than you did last year to get bowl eligible. Can you just talk about that dynamic, both with the non-conference and conference schedule? Yeah,
really perceptive comment. And I shared this with both Cam and Ike on our administration. Our team this year will have to play significantly better than a year ago, even for the same result, record-wise or bowl game, etc. But that's an awesome thing to basically to play up, to change conferences and to move forward. That doesn't mean we'd be, I don't know. I don't think that we'd be comfortable with just that record. But the reality is, and the brutal fact is, that's what I'm telling my team, right? We'll have to be significantly better to have that same win-loss record based on our schedule. However, that doesn't mean we settle for that. That just is the acknowledgement of that's what is. And so let's now prepare and play in a manner that acknowledges that and then exceeds that. And I think it's good for everyone just to hear that out loud, including my own team.
Hey, Coach, in what areas would you describe that you have more depth this season on your roster compared to last year? And in what areas would you say you're maybe a little bit thinner and you still have a lot of work to do? Yeah,
a few areas jump right out as you're saying that. Our defense is deeper really at every position. So we're deeper, we're broader, and I think we're more talented throughout the defensive unit. Offensive line, we're deeper than what we were a year ago, which is both those areas are fantastic. We're thinner at wide receiver than we were a year ago. We're deeper at running back. The rest of the positions, that's a pretty broad net of what I just described. So in general, the team is deeper, broader, and more talented throughout, thinner right now at wide receiver in terms of experienced players.
So there's been some recent shakeups with eligibility and whatnot, with recent lawsuits. Has the coaching staff considered maybe adding anyone at this late stage, considering there's a lot of players that may have another year of eligibility suddenly? Yeah, and I think so. The clarity's coming as we go. The reality is it went from being potentially a lot of players to now, man, that's kind of a very a small thread of players that could be
considered. Additional clarity came out yesterday, and so there's not many that could be considered. We have one player that we would love to have back that we think will qualify, but that hasn't been confirmed or approved yet, but we're working on it. His name is Bryson Taylor. Of all of our players that possibly had a chance, we have one that could qualify, meeting all the criteria. And I think throughout the world of college football, all the calls are being made to players in NFL camps and et cetera. The clarity is now basically eliminated those players, but there are others that still have a chance based on current criteria. I'm speaking now based on the knowledge we have. It could change again tomorrow with even more clarity. But this idea that it's a lot of players, it's not a lot. It's few, and we have one that we're working on, and that'd be great for both Bryson and us if it works.
Again, back here. With this being the first season in this new Pac-12, does it feel like there's a little more pressure to perform well, to establish yourself in the conference, or is that not something that you really think about?
It's not something I think about. Gosh, going into my 20th year being a head coach, I don't. It just seems like one giant season that has felt the same. And I like to win. I like to maximize potential. I like just amazing young people trying as hard as they can. I like playing in December, which happens pretty much every year. I like success, and I like great young people. And all those things I expect to happen again, and no one wants it more than me. There isn't, it's not possible. And so that's just 20 years of wanting the same thing. And I want that even more now than ever. And I think our players know that.
You've kind of touched on this, but with, setting a standard, creating a culture last year, you were new here, trying to establish what you were expecting with your coaching staff. Everybody understands what they need to do as a coaching staff. Then you come into your second year, you have a little bit more opportunity to build upon that. But how much of a challenge is that with so much roster turnover, with so many guys in the transfer portal and coming in and out, and trying to sustain and maintain and grow the culture that you want?
I think one of the critical keys in college football currently, with the external environment being what it is, and in our case, 53% of this roster is different. I bet that's fairly typical throughout college football. Certainly there'll be outliers on either end, but I bet that's pretty typical. When you think about that, the absolute number one thing to me in today's landscape is retainment of your current players. The retainment of your current players that then have the compounding effect of the year before and then the next year, their jump in performance, but also their leadership in terms of passing on culture to new transfer players coming in. So again, I use the word or the phrase, and it's from the book Good to Great, right? Preserve the core and stimulate progress. That core are our best players from a year ago that had to be retained. They not only played well, but they lead well, and they've had a year's worth of our culture. That way it can be passed on not only from the coaching staff, from the players. That makes that process more seamless, but also more effective. If you're losing your best leaders and your best players yearly, then truly you're kind of starting over each year. And that can be done. It's just, that would be like 1 year startup in a business and just starting up over and over again. And that can be done with succession planning. It can be done with the right organizational design. And I'd prefer to have compounding results by retaining players, which it's way more effective, and it's also cheaper to retain your players than to go in the portal and have to pay more for players that aren't as good or aren't as experienced and they haven't been in your system. And so I just fundamentally believe retainment is right at the heart of building programs right now.
Looking through the schedule here, Coach, pretty much almost every week is nationally televised. Just talk about how that changes the standard, how that changes just the mindset week to week, knowing that whether you win or you lose, it might be, magnified a bit more on a national scale.
Yeah, it's everything we wanted by moving to the Pac-12. Relevance, right? The games matter. People are tuning in. Access is greater. When in the world has, every game been maybe nationally televised at Utah State. And that's exactly what the vision has been, is to qualify for, battle for, and then become a program that everyone wants to watch. And I'm lucky because I get to lead a program during that era and at that time. Our players too, they sense that. And who doesn't want to feel important? Who doesn't want to have higher stakes to play for? Little kids are always looking to play up, right? Play with their older brothers, etc. Then you move to that stage, and there's a great feeling about that. And then you're looking for the next move. And so, yeah, we'll be doing it while the world is watching, which is just what we'd hope for.
Coach Rory McNeil with the Utah Statesman. You mentioned that retaining players is cheaper than going to the portal. Do you feel that as a coach that you've been given the resources, finances wise, because that's been a key part of college football, to be competitive with the rest of the teams in the Pac-12?
Yeah, I'm really, really happy with what Utah State has done and the resources I've been given. And my job is to maximize those. And we'll continue to grow and expand and continue to add strategy for that process to continue. No one knows if that's going to end, where it will cap. But what we do know is that it's tripling about each year, which I don't see any sustainability hope for that, regardless of what program it is. But I think our administration, man, they've been great partners in addressing the needs. And as I share them, I haven't been told no yet. And so that's an amazing thing for a coach. And I ask within reason, and I know the landscape, but I feel like I'm being supported at a really high level.
Coach, a two-part question for you. You've talked in the past about just the current model of recruiting and the transfer portal and everything not being sustainable, and the need to create something that is more sustainable. Have you seen any progress in that? And then the second part of that, what steps have you taken with your program to help your coaches manage their time and their resources?
Yeah. So I would say regarding progress and the national landscape, I think that's limited and slow and tenuous and uncertain at best. I gave the analogy, or I gave the story a year ago of the transfer portal a year ago opened on a Friday. School at Utah State started the next Monday. And so truly, if a team follows the rules and there's no contact, direct or indirect, with any player in the portal, that would have given us Saturday and Sunday to be ready for Monday visits. And school's going. With the 10-day window to add players, we needed 33 scholarship players. We visited 44 players in 10 days on 24-hour visits to form the foundation of the team. I don't know if you've ever been on a speed date before. How accurate can you be in 24 hours? Do that now 44 times and tell me that's sustainable. And so, man, if you're not really clear about what you're looking for, how are you going to find it in 24 hours? And so, gosh. And then, by the way, agents influencing and driving up costs on the speed date. And say the motive then is now sincere. The financial part of that is blended within that. And so I don't see how that's sustainable. I don't see how it's smart. I don't see how it's wise, but I do know and acknowledge that that's the landscape. And so we'll design against it. I think we did really well in who we chose and the players choosing us under the circumstances. And if we're using that as the foundational way to build a football team, you all were just kind of smiling when I talked about speed dating and acknowledging, like, what are we doing? I think most coaches are similar. That's not a complaint. That's just acknowledging what it is. And where we go from here, it'll be interesting to see. And I don't think anyone truly knows. In terms of my coaching staff, Dan, during that time, those 2 weeks of the 44 visits in 10 days, there wasn't a lot of sleep. And there's players coming in and players going out and finding a new one. And I mean, that was 24/7 and a strain on resources. However, it was needed. And I work really hard for our program to be efficiently run and for our coaches to have family time when possible in relation to our industry. And I care about my staff. So I do the best I can to make sure they're renewed and fresh and have a quality life, not only at work, but at home as well.
Coach, sorry, another one for me. Your staff named McKay Hillstead the starter at the conclusion of spring practices. What have you seen from him in the off season so far? I don't know, your contact is limited, but also what do you see in him where that he is in a position to lead your football team as a starting quarterback?
Yeah, we did name McKay at the end of spring. Not only his performance through spring, but I would say leadership, players' belief in him, a confidence, at an experience level. I think all kind of cumulatively made it a clear choice for us. Since that time, wow, McKay does a really nice job of marshaling resources. He's a fantastic organizer. He's very detailed in his planning. The plan that he put together for our offense without coaches being around would rival any offensive coordinator that I've seen would have put together. And again, that wasn't sent to me to approve it. I saw one of our receivers just looking at this sheet walking down the hall, and I looked over his shoulder and said, "What's that?" And he goes, "It's McKay's plan." And I was really impressed. So small things like that. He's not clamoring for attention, and he's not racing for the spotlight, and he's not craving recognition amongst his peers. He's just systematically building this team. And those are the things we saw in spring, and how he's different leader than Bryson, different personality than Bryson, but his leadership so far very effective. And I would say his preparation, I think that's the word I would use, his preparation of this team has been exceptional.
Time for one more question.
Coach, one more individual player question is taking a look at the depth chart. Noticed Anthony Garcia has transitioned to the wide receiver position full-time after being a gadget player last year. How do you expect to use him this season? And was part of that thinking, you mentioned the wide receiver room was kind of short on experience. Was it trying to get him over there to help with that?
So Anthony's very versatile. A year ago, as if you remember, we brought him in as a quarterback, and it was clear as Bryson was playing better, Anthony's going to be too valuable of a player just to be watching. And it seems like anytime we put him in the game, we scored touchdowns. Either he's catching it, or he's throwing it, or he's running it. And that was while he was doing that from the receiver position. That's where he was launched from. So he's becoming polished and more skilled at wide receiver. I would still expect to see him in the other roles in terms of how he's being used. And rumor is he can punt. So we'll see. He might punt it, he might run it, or he might throw it, or he might hand it off, or we'll see. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.